Lando Norris takes pole position in one of those incredibly exciting qualifying sessions, and he snatched victory from the local hero Leclerc, who was already thinking about starting in front once again at home, with a clear path to a second win. So sit down and let's quickly talk about this fourth one. 11 o'clock in the morning, Brasilia time, 16 local, 4 in the afternoon in Monaco. 21 degrees ambient temperature, 41 on the track, light wind, and everyone lined up to leave the pit lane right away. 20 cars, the narrowest track of the year, Q1 is always absolute chaos there. The two Williams were the first to head out and set a time. Sainz and Albon, with Albon so far outperforming his Spanish teammate, but both of them abandoned their laps because they hit traffic, let those behind pass, and got ready for another attempt. And it was the two Haas cars, with Bergman and Ocon, who set the first laps still quite high, 1:14.598. Hülkenberg came out for his first flying lap, 1:13.354, Bortoleto right behind him, 0:140 back. And then Leclerc, who led FP1, FP2, and FP3 racing at home, won the race last year, set a 1:13.063, put Ferrari on top, but as we know, still far from the ideal time. So much so that Lawson showed up, who's been performing well for the first time since he was demoted or downgraded from Red Bull to Racing Bulls, and he set a 1:12.1946. And with 5 minutes into the session, the McLarens made their first appearance on track while Verstappen was still in the garage. Norris came out 1:12.860 first, but there wasn't even time to savor it because Oscar Piastri put in a much better lap, 1:12.439. And in Monaco, everything is very relative, so it doesn't mean that Piastri was actually 4/10ths faster than Norris at that moment. It could be that Norris hit traffic, maybe brushed the wall a little and had to ease off. Many factors come into play, especially in Q1 with 20 cars on the track. In Q3, where there are only 10 cars, things get a bit simpler and we get closer to an ideal scenario or universe. If you can even say that about Formula One cars racing at that speed inside a city. But anyway, you get what I mean. This pronounced difference, 4/10ths between the two McLarens, meant that both Williams cars fit between them, with Sainz ahead of Albon, just because I said that Albon has been outperforming him. Then there's Hamilton, who crashed in free practice 3 and whose Ferrari had to have its rear rebuilt, managed to put his Ferrari in second, 0.245 behind Leclerc. Verstappen was still missing, and he came out and was the first to break into the 1:11 range, 1:11.920, taking first place. Then Norris found a good lap and beat that initial time from Verstappen by 4/10ths, 1:11.596, confirming what I was saying. Sometimes Verstappen's good lap wasn't as good as it could have been because he might have eased off a bit or maybe got caught in traffic and so on. The track kept improving, getting more rubber laid down, and the red striped soft tires were working well for the first time this weekend, which hadn't been the case until now. And then, with the soft tires working well, the drivers started getting really close to the wall, just skimming it, which is exactly what you have to do in qualifying. As drivers from the past used to say, if you don't scrape the wall, you're not going to get a good time. And speaking of scraping the wall, Lance Stroll did it again. Coming out of the tunnel, just like yesterday in the incident with Leclerc, he moved aside for one car, and as he was returning to the racing line, Gasly was coming through on a flying lap. So, he might lose more positions on the grid since he's already carrying a penalty from yesterday's incident with Leclerc. There was no contact with Gasly, but the French Alpine driver complained a lot. With 4 minutes left in Q1, the elimination zone included Stroll, Lawson, Rajar, Colapinto, and Gasly, 1 Aston Martin, 2 Racing Bulls, and 2 Alpines. Then Hülkenberg went out and found a lap that put his car among the top 10. 1:11.08, leaving Bortoleto 4/10ths behind, but also showing that Bortoleto had 4/10ths to find in the car. Meanwhile, at the front, Piastri moved up to first with a 1:11.229. Bortoleto did his lap, improved by 3 of those 4/10ths, 1:11.953, 15th place. It would have been enough to advance, not ahead of Hülkenberg, but he would have made it through. But then Rajar improved his time, pushed Bortoleto down to 16th, and that put him in the elimination zone. But it wasn't over yet because Antonelli at the port chicane took the inside line and was pushed out. His tire came off the rim and he crashed straight into the barrier. Red flag. There wasn't that much damage since he was going slow, but in Monaco it takes time. They have to remove the car from there because it's naturally tight. Imagine if they just left a car there. But in the past, races would keep going even with cars stopped at the side of the track, a real horror show. So eliminated were Bortoleto, Behrman, Gasly, Stroll, and Franco Colapinto. Not bad, Bortoleto qualifying in 16th. But he didn't make it to Q2. Yes, that's true, but behind him there are better cars. Most of the time, Haas, Alpine, and Aston Martin are better. Leclerc started Q2 on medium tires, clocking a 1.11.3, but then Norris came in using softs, which are the fastest for a single lap, and broke into the 10s. 1:10.959. Verstappen made his first attempt fast enough for P2, 0.165 off the top. And the camera quickly cut to Russell's Mercedes, going slow, inside the tunnel, with him saying, "I have no power, I have no power, the car won't go anymore." He tried a few procedures with the buttons, but the team said that's it, and he was out. Red flag, second Mercedes eliminated in just a few minutes, which meant that now the fight for spots in Q3 was down to just 13 cars, since both Mercedes had made it through but weren't going to set a time. Wait, but didn't Antonelli crash in Q1? He did crash in Q1, but he crashed in Q1 with enough time to go to Q2, so he went to Q2 and didn't set a lap. 10 minutes to the end of Q2 was what the clock showed, paused then by the red flag until Russell's Mercedes was removed from the middle of the tunnel. When the session resumed, Leclerc went out and set a 1:10.581. Hamilton was second with a 1:10.883, 0.3 of a second between the two. Leclerc is on another level this weekend. Could it be the home advantage? But Ferrari, in any case, has been drawing attention for something that hasn't been its strong suit so far this year: single lap pace. Norris went out and put in an excellent lap, 1:10.570, pushing both Ferraris down to second and third. Verstappen was in 6th place, but he still had one more attempt in Q2 and improved to third, pushing Hamilton down to fourth. With a minute and a half left in Q2, Rajar, Hülkenberg, and Ocon were fighting to see who would advance, since both Mercedes, as I mentioned, were stuck there without a time in 14th and 15th positions. Times were improving, but not for everyone. And so those eliminated were Carlos Sainz, Yuki Tsunoda, Nico Hülkenberg, and both Mercedes. So only 10 were left, and the track was much clearer this way, with only half the cars. And we know that qualifying in Monaco is the most important of the season. Many even say that the real race happens on Saturday, because on Sunday it's very hard to overtake. And it really is, so much so that they came up with this new rule, and we'll talk about that at the end and explain the difference between tire compounds, pit stops, and so on. It was now the decisive moment of the weekend. 10 cars, the 10 fastest, to decide who would take pole position. Oscar Piastri went out and set his time, 1:10.531, and then improved it to 1:10.464. Lewis Hamilton came in and did 0.522 behind. Half a second is quite a lot. Leclerc came through and put Ferrari in third, pushing Hamilton's other car down to fourth. Leclerc in this case, was 0.189 behind the leader. Then Verstappen came, taking 4th place behind Leclerc and ahead of Hamilton. With that, after the first round of times, it was Norris, Piastri, Leclerc, Verstappen, Hamilton, Ocon, Alonso, Lawson, Albon, and Rajar. But then the final round began, and Oscar Piastri started off with a sensational lap. First sector purple, second sector purple, and he crossed the finish line with a 1:10.140. Norris was coming behind, set a purple second sector but not the first, and was on pace to beat the leading time before Piastri finished, but not by much. But then, in the third sector, he pulled the famous rabbit out of the hat and improved the mark to 1:10.125, 15 thousandths faster than his teammate. Hamilton came and put his Ferrari in third, 0.257 ahead, and Leclerc was further back to do his lap. Would he pull off a miracle lap? So the crowd stood up, let out a cheer even before he finished, because he had set a purple second sector. In case you're just tuning in, when you see the purple sector marking, it means that was the fastest time through that section in that session. When it's green, it's the driver's own best time, and when it's yellow, it's not even their best. And then he clocked a 1:10.63 pole position. Well, almost, because the McLarens kept pushing. Oscar Piastri was still on a flying lap, and so was Lando Norris. Piastri didn't improve and stayed where he was, but Lando Norris broke into the 9s. 109.954, 109 thousandths faster than Leclerc's time. Pole position for him. So Leclerc is second, Piastri third, Lewis Hamilton fourth, and Max Verstappen fifth. Sixth was Rajar, seventh Fernando Alonso, eighth Esteban Ocon, ninth Liam Lawson, and 10th Alexander Albon. The rest in the same order as before: Carlos Sainz and Yuki Tsunoda, Nico Hülkenberg, George Russell, Kimi Antonelli. 16th Gabriel Bortoledo, 17th Oliver Behrman, 18th Gasly, 19th Lance Stroll, and 20th Franco Colapinto. Remember, this is the qualifying order. The starting grid is another story, and we'll announce it tomorrow shortly before the race starts, because a lot can happen until then. Someone might decide to break Parc Fermé regulations, make some changes, or tweak something. So the grid is one thing, qualifying is another. This is the qualifying order. What can we expect for tomorrow? Well, usually whoever starts at the front in Monaco is already halfway, or even more than halfway, to winning the race. But this year, the new rule comes into play, and I'm going to put the regulation up on the screen to read it with you and clear up any doubts. Here's what the regulation says. I put it down here for you. For the Monaco race, each driver must use at least 4 tires. 3 sets of tires of any of the specifications, hard, medium, or soft, during the race, and unless intermediate or wet tires have been used, meaning that when it rains, the rule is relaxed, each driver must use at least 2 different rubber specifications. In other words, in dry conditions, you have to use 2 different compounds plus 3 sets of tires. Let's go! This means, therefore, that the 3 sets of tires can be used while the race is ongoing, that is, under green flag conditions, or in the case of a red flag, if you change tires during the red flag, that also counts as a set. So let's pay attention to that. It's 3 sets of at least 2 types of compounds, and 3 sets does not mean 3 pit stops. It's very different, so it's important to keep an eye on that. For those who want to research and understand more, I'll leave the link to the Formula 1 sporting regulations down below in the description. So, continuing and getting back on track, what can we expect for tomorrow? Well, Norris is still the favorite for the race despite this new rule, but the unpredictable comes into play. Let's see what the teams will do. There are a lot of smart people at McLaren and in the other teams as well. So, as I mentioned, someone might try a crazy strategy of making 1 pit stop on the first lap, another on the second, just to stay away from traffic for the whole race and run on hard tires for the rest of it. But whoever chooses this kind of strategy definitely doesn't want to see a safety car, not even if it's painted gold, because after all, they'll already be out on track and want the race to keep running, with everyone making their stops under green flag conditions so they can make up for the lost time, which is exactly what happened last week. Bortoledo pitted under green flag while other drivers stopped during the safety car and virtual safety car. Because of that, he got screwed. For him, starting from the back, it's a matter of survival. Staying out of trouble, not making mistakes, and being in a position to capitalize on a crazy race, on lots of people crashing, on a race of attrition. The weather forecast is calling for a 5 to 15% chance of rain, so I wouldn't pin my hopes on that. The Monaco Grand Prix takes place tomorrow at 10 in the morning, broadcast on free-to-air TV and F1 TV. But 15 minutes earlier, if you want, you can already join us live on YouTube on our Project Outro canal. Our parallel broadcast is a second screen experience for you to watch there, but listen along with us here. Just turn down the volume and come join us. I'll be in the commentary, Matheus Furlano will be doing the play-by-play, and I think we'll have Giuliane Cerasoli joining us with commentary as well, giving me great tips and insights about what's happening. She's right there on the front lines. We start our broadcast 15 minutes before the race begins, and we'll stay with you all the way to the checkered flag. Once the race is over, I rush home, have lunch, and watch the Indianapolis 500 like a regular fan on my day off, but not entirely, because as soon as the race ends over in the United States, I come back here to prepare the slides for our live stream at 6 o'clock to meet up with you all. All right? So leave a like. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything. You know, it really helps the channel a lot. Do me this favor and I'll see you here tomorrow at 9:45 in the morning on Outro Canal and at 6 in the evening on our live stream to talk about everything that happened on and off the track. Have you ever imagined a crazy race? Bortoledo scoring points? Anything can happen, right? We've already had a race in Monaco with only 4 cars finishing and 2 of them were Saubers. Just a tip, I'll leave the link to the Outro Canal broadcast pinned here. The live stream is already set up. Alright, that's it. Have a great Saturday afternoon. We are still leading the iBest ranking in first place in the voting. If you haven't voted yet, there's still time. If you have, you can vote every day up to 3 times, and I think we'll make it to the next round to Q2. I'm counting on your support. To make sure you don't miss anything we do here, and we do a lot, there are notification channels on Telegram, Instagram, and WhatsApp, in addition to our social media that you already know. Instagram, Twitter, Threads, TikTok. The handles are showing here, and the links are down below in the description, alright? So that's it. Thank you so much, and a big warm hug.